If they try to tell you that a service contract is more important than the lives of your fellow soldiers, that contract needs to change. And so does the system which allowed it to come into being. Hi, I'm Nathan, and as a right to repair advocate, I believe people should be allowed to fix their stuff. The campaign to win the right to repair, reforms that ensure manufacturers can't constrain repair of modern equipment, has often felt contentious. Right now, the battlefield for those rights is the literal battlefield. That's because Congress is close to granting the military a right to repair. We're extremely close, but we can't give up now. Despite both the House and Senate passing versions of the National Defense Authorization Act with right to repair included, that's the must-pass legislation that funds the military, Senate leadership is making a final decision, and military contractors and others are pushing to get right to repair stripped out. Let me explain why the military can't fix its stuff, what makes that a big deal, who is pushing for and against this, and what you can do to help us win. Let's start with this question. Why can't the military fix stuff? Being a right to repair advocate, I periodically get contacted by people who say, I heard you on the radio talking about phone repair, but let me tell you about watches and wheelchairs or medical equipment, industrial controllers, etc., etc., etc. I've gotten used to that, but it totally hits different when the call you get is from an employee at the Pentagon. I would assume that the military would ensure that when they spend billions, even trillions of dollars on this stuff, that it came with the understanding that if they wanted to fix it, they would go ahead and do that. But what I was told by insiders was alarming. The way it was presented to me, the overarching attitude was total deference to the defense contractors to the point of subservience. Staff felt that the policy was that it was wrong to push back against the contractors, even when they were setting obviously unfair terms and conditions. So just like manufacturers push the rest of us to use their authorized service providers, which cost a lot more, and they restrict us from fixing things ourselves, the military is facing the exact same thing. Manufacturers are allowed right now to restrict what is needed to complete repairs, so only they have those materials, and then weaponize contractual terms which discourage us from even trying. So what happens when the military can't fix things? First, we get price gouged. Recently on The Daily Show, Rep. Chris Deluzio from Pennsylvania gave us this example from a government accountability report.
Well, look, there's very little competition. There used to be 51 prime defense contractors back in the 90s. There are 5 now.
5?
5. Okay, and we could spend the whole night talking about different ways we get gouged. Let's take the C-17, okay, transport aircraft.
Sure.
Soap dispensers. The report that we saw, 7,900% markup on soap dispensers.
Another example from a Reuters article. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll revealed a Black Hawk helicopter screen control knob that cost $47,000 as part of a full assembly could be manufactured independently for just $15. That's a big difference. My organization, Public Interest Research Group, or PIRG, has done our work to collect our own stories. We heard this story from a recently retired officer, which we included in our report, Military Right to Repair. Recently retired Master Sergeant Kelly Clark worked as an observer coach trainer at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany. As a small, unmanned aerial systems master trainer, he saw firsthand how inefficient and costly manufacturer-imposed repair restrictions are. One drone he worked with, the RQ-11 Raven SUAS, often failed to initiate startup after a hard landing. The Raven is designed to crash land, so a hard landing is not uncommon. The only fix was to send the entire system back to the manufacturer at a cost of approximately $26,000. At one point, Clark's team reached a logistics backlog and were given temporary repair approval. They quickly discovered that a small connector was becoming dislodged from the motherboard due to a lack of retainer clip or any other retention method. They began reinserting the connector and adding a drop of hot glue to prevent the reoccurrence, saving tens of thousands of dollars in shipping and repair costs. So we can either spend $26,000 of taxpayer money, waste time while personnel twiddle their thumbs waiting for the drones to be shipped back and forth, just to reattach something anyone with opposable thumbs could manage. Also, when you spend $26,000 and they just put the plug back in the clip and don't actually fix the underlying problem, that seems preposterous. So all this money we're wasting is a huge thing. But, really this is more than the money. That's because broken, unfixable stuff puts troops at risk. There's a popular military life content creator named Mike who has a YouTube channel called It's a Blast. Twitter account EOD Happy Captain recently posted this to his X account about Army Secretary Driscoll's, quote, powerful speech on right to repair, and added this recollection. In 2010, we were in a remote part of Afghanistan on a combat outpost with roughly 70 to 90 soldiers. We had 2 robots, and we used them a lot to work on IEDs. Their service was under contract. We weren't allowed to fix them. After a lot of use, they both broke, and a field service representative couldn't get to us in a timely manner. So what do? Do you force the team leader to put on the bomb suit and risk their life for every call? Or do you fix it yourself? We went with option B. We completely took apart 2 broken robots to create one working one that we used on mission. Did we get yelled at? Yes. Would I do it all over again knowing I kept my team leader safe? Absolutely. If they try to tell you that a service contract is more important than the lives of your fellow soldiers, that contract needs to change. And so does the system which allowed it to come into being. Because that's outrageous. I hear a lot of stories from people who struggle to fix medical equipment in military hospitals, and these are life or death situations. This one really upsets me. Retired Master Sergeant Wesley Reed shared the story with me from his 20 years in the Army. While he was deployed in Afghanistan, his job was to fix the CT scanner in his hospital. CT scans are critical tools to detect internal bleeding or shrapnel a field medic may have missed in order to provide treatment within the, quote, golden hour, that critical hour of diagnosis and treatment from battlefield injury to reaching a field hospital. It's key to survival. So during Reed's deployment, he lost access to a microcontroller that gave him a critical diagnostic feature for the equipment. The manufacturer said that it would not send a new controller because the device was too old, and Reed was told to buy a new device. Meanwhile, wounded service members who needed a scan that could save their lives kept arriving at Reed's medical facility, and he didn't know what to do to keep the equipment running, so he just did the best he could without that microcontroller. Reed recalls that he received special training from the manufacturer on the device, and the Army had paid for the highest level of available support. However, the way the equipment was made required the manufacturer's essentially ongoing permission to use the repair every year, and one day they decided enough. My mental health really struggled, Reed told us, recalling what a challenge it was to keep the CT scan working and how many lives are at stake. I was fixing that equipment with one hand tied behind my back. Why are we doing this? I think Rep. DeLuzio at Pittsburgh again said it really well on The Daily Show.
And this problem it plays out on a bunch of systems and you name it, where the troops can't even fix their own stuff because of these contracts, where it's got to be repaired by the company or their subcontractor. It costs the public a lot of money. It hurts readiness for the troops because they can't fix stuff that they would know how to do because of these contracts.
So this brings us to a key question. Who's for and against the military getting their right to repair? The list of proponents is powerful. The first is the military's own leadership. I've mentioned a couple times, Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll has been campaigning for the right to repair since President Trump put him in place, as has the Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, who recently relayed a story about not being able to fix ovens on a carrier. Guys, I'm not sure how much you know about military strategy, but feed the sailors is generally thought to be sound advice. The second group of supporters is a bipartisan group of lawmakers and the White House. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tim Sheehy in the Senate side, and Representatives Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, Jen Kiggins, and Maggie Goodlander on the House side are the original sponsors of the Warrior Right to Repair Act of 2025, showing broad bipartisan spectrum of support. The White House is also officially in support of right to repair provisions in the defense bill. Also the American people. We commissioned a poll asking likely voters, quote, would you support or oppose Congress passing a law allowing the military to repair equipment they own rather than relying on paying the manufacturer's authorized repair technicians? Or are you undecided? Not many undecided. In fact, 76% supported, 11% opposed overall. The support was actually the highest among likely Republican voters, who supported at 82% to 10%. I have been around polls for a long time. I've been in politics a while. Like, that's pretty unprecedented. That's about as good as you could poll for anything. So you have support from military leadership. You have leaders of both parties. You have the White House. You have an overwhelming majority of voters. So why hasn't this happened already? Oh yeah, the opposition. Defense contractors are against it. And they make arguments like this would have severe implications for the Defense Department and industry when right to repair is applied to exquisite weapons platforms. Exquisite! And so are lobbying groups for medical devices, toasters, and tractors? Yeah, the people who don't want farmers or hospitals or local repair shops fixing things are willing to fight here and there and anywhere. People have the audacity to fix the things that they buy. We're getting regular reports that these lobbying groups have descended upon Congress. Here's how you can help. We are really close to winning. But with all the power and money from our opponents, who definitely want to keep repair price gouging schemes going, we need to make sure the lawmakers hear from us. You can email your senators. PIRG has a tool to help you linked below. You can call their offices on the phone. All their numbers are available at senate.gov. And you can share this video to help get the word out. Our world is full of problems that we shouldn't have to tolerate. Let's take this one off the board. Till next time.